I can just go through the document as I have so far. I want to just read it through to you and kind of get your feedback and ideas. And again, bear in mind the grand plan of the mission statement, but also bear in mind that I really want this organization to be a place where anyone in the world can go to for information. They're just curious about automation. They're curious about the future. And this stuff is all fully transparent there for anyone to sign up for information, to join and talk with someone directly if they want about how to get involved. Just a great place to connect parties. And just like we want to do with all our organizations, this is a great place to focus on the future of robotics and automation and how we want to ethically apply it. So let's jump in. The principles I have so far. So number one is to really ensure that no human is left behind when their job is replaced by robots. That we find a way to create courses for retraining and giving, even more importantly, new purpose for anyone displaced. And we see it all the time now, and there's governments are starting to do this, which is great. I think it's getting a lot more attention than ever before. So I think it's just, again, really important that the whole world kind of thinks about it together. If we're going to send robots to start, planting trees or mining things all across the world, we need ways to kind of help those people that get displaced by these robots and not think of it as a country by country point of view, but actually think of it from a global perspective.
No, for sure. The problem here is ownership, because most of the robotics capacities are owned by a relative extreme minority of people on planet Earth. So
Yeah.
I'm not arguing for like a communist revolution or anything to take back the means of production or anything. But you'd have to do something like universal basic income in the sense of like it being a dividend.
Right.
That's sort of the understanding what the people are getting the money for. It's that we will allow the people who privately own technologies to keep privately owning them, with the understanding that because most of these technologies, the fruits of which are now just producing all the goods and running the world and stuff, were developed by from taxes a lot of the time anyway, and so people de facto, the people as a whole, paid for them in some way. So they would just be seen more of like as a shareholder almost in that whole situation, and therefore wouldn't be denied the fruits of these technologies.
Yeah, perfect. And that goes right into my next point, is to ensure they have something to do, a new purpose, but also mediate and advise on universal basic income, universal basic dividend programs worldwide to ensure that all humans everywhere have continued access to the basic necessities of life. The only way to prevent some kind of revolt or disaster Armageddon is to ensure that everybody has at least the basic, minimal amount of food and water
or a
and
new
opportunity.
or a new Luddite movement. Like people breaking the machines. Like you don't want, especially if you own them, you don't want people to start being hostile toward them. That just doesn't serve
Exactly.
anybody's purpose.
We want every human to actually embrace the robotics, embrace the fact that they don't have to do these hard, laborious jobs anymore, because they can share in the profits from that. So we have to share the prosperity to make a global kind of cooperative effort to ensure we don't destroy ourselves. That's really the main purpose of this organization, as I see it, is to get that word out there and to get everyone excited about this new future. There's a lot of great that can come from it if we do it right. Okay, so I think that's great. I think we're online there. That's the number one point. Number two, monitor AI programming advances to ensure potential for a sentient AI takeover is minimized. That's kind of a secondary thing. So the first thing, make sure humans are safe. Second thing, make sure that we minimize the potential for AI takeover.
It's just the issue of takeover terminologically. It's not. It doesn't have to be, and probably it wouldn't be strictly takeover as we understand it politically in terms of power. It's more of really about mishaps, or the AI starting to do something that it wasn't supposed to be doing because it misunderstood what it was supposed to be doing in a way that could kill all people. Yes, but it's not a takeover in that the AI would decide to do a takeover. It would be just, the famous example is the paperclip maximizer. Is that it would just decide that people need to be turned into paperclips. So you can call it takeover, I guess, but
whatever the good word is, it all fits into that category. Any kind of, like you said, mishap or unintended consequence of AI. It's about trying to stay on top of those things. So the three parts of that, to expand it, create and enforce some kind of laws of robotics as the technology advances, again, they're never perfect, but it's just making sure that we're all on the same page of what we want, whether we want military robots or firefighter or police robots. We just need to talk about it and have that conversation open and transparently. B, the rights of potentially sentient robots may need to be considered at some point, as well as possibly stay on good terms with the androids out there, so that they don't want to take us over, so that we can kind of live in harmony with them.
I would say that one would be the like a very far off one, because currently the information technology is nowhere near understanding or emulating sentience or awareness in any fashion that we can detect or conceive of. So
Yeah.
it is. I think that's more of a hope of the futurists, of the futuristic technologists. But it's possible. It's definitely possible, and it's good to be aware of the possibility,
Yeah.
so that we don't miss it if it happens. If something
Right. If
becomes
we,
sentient or
even if
something.
it's 100 or 1,000 years old, the fact that it's kind of here from our charter from the beginning, at least is a point to consider. You know, they're not just our slaves. They're tools. Yes, we've created them as tools, but we want to make sure that we at least consider that they may at some point have rights or sentience of some kind as we create it. We'll be their gods, essentially, right? We're going to be their creators.
Well,
And
I would maybe use the word parents, because gods
Parents is a better
implies
word.
too much unjustified perfection, or sounds a
Okay.
bit egotistical.
It's a good word, yeah. Parents. So
Also,
we will be their parents.
also
We don't want our kids to kill us.
yeah, and also the child can be in any way more advanced than the parents. That's the idea.
Okay, yeah, so that's B of number 2. And then C is some kind of fail-safe plans, maybe to disconnect or disable weapons of mass destruction, bioweapons, terrorism weapons, in the event of any kind of AI mishap or runaway or sentient takeover. That's the Terminator.
I think that's I think
Skynet
that's the place where all the science fiction, dystopian science fiction comes in, and that's the fun part of the whole project. And I think some parts of it have already been done. I think I've read some paper about how to prevent gray goo scenarios, like written by some serious scientists.
Yeah, you definitely need some kind of EMP backup. Like for the Horizon Zero Dawn, that's another great example. I love that game. Amazing story. We definitely just need to think about that and make sure all governments of the world have these plans in place, and all corporations have some kind of shut-off switch that's built into all AI technology from the ground in the event of any kind of mishap.
I think the paper went even further and was like, okay, in this scenario, assuming that there's no such thing as easy shut-off switch, it was sort of explaining, and that's always the stuff that I really like about hard science fiction, is that, or when actual scientists are pondering the questions, that what it would look like in terms of physical limitations. And some of the conclusions are, it's not because none of these are like, so they can be presented as very scary and like all-powerful scenarios, but all of the potential dooms are limited and preventable or mitigatable. And in this case, it is okay. So you have these sort of nanite particles that are the constituent blocks of the gray goo. But how do you make them? Do you want to make them shielded from EMP? Sure, you can do that. It's not technologically impossible, but it's a trade-off. Always that non-shielded nanobot would be able to replicate much faster, because they would technologically devise it to maximize that function. So yeah, if it was just maximized for fast spread, then EMP should be able to stop it. If it was maximized like to shield it against EMP, then it would have way more time to do something about it. It's like one of the trade-off considerations. Another one would be, okay, so it's in some place somewhere on planet Earth and it's replicating quickly. The limit for that is heat. Meaning that if it was replicating at maximum speed, the maximum speed, what it means is as hot as it can be without melting. And heat is detectable, like with satellites from space. So again, either it would replicate at breakneck pace and shine like a beacon, so that you will know exactly where to throw the nuke on it, or which like it's like a nuke. It can't counter a nuke direct hit with the nuke. That's vaporization of transmutation of the particles. That's a constituent block. So that like it can't be magically immune to weapons. That's just again not how it works. So again, it would have to try to do it covertly and slowly. So again, you would have way more time to do something about it. So it's just when you start to think about it in terms of realistic physics, which I think for any of these potential doomsdays with any of the aspect of artificial intelligence or these related technologies, whether biological or cybernetic or whatever, it always like if the real science people look at it and they can usually explain to you the limitations that this would run into, which are also why it's such an engineering challenge to actually build those devices.
Right.
Because there are plenty of limitations in real physics. So it would have to be, for it to be magical, it would have to involve, like, it was apparently magical, meaning like a perfect, unstoppable, super quick, undetectable completely. It would have to
Yep.
introduce like a whole new element of physics that it would have that we wouldn't understand. So then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, maybe alien green goo from like a billion-year-old alien race would be a problem that we wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
handle in any scenario. But if it's built by us with our understanding, or full understanding of the technologies involved and physics involved, then we understand how to stop it. We just
Yeah.
have
I
to do
mean,
it. To do it.
probably one of the easiest ways for a sentient AI to conquer all of us would be to just mail some kind of virus to everybody in the world at a similar time, right? Or even just to enough different cities somehow, and then just kind of try to get that out there somehow, some kind of easily transmissible 99% fatal virus out there, right?
That's another good point, because like all of these things I'm saying is not necessarily all ideas out of my head. I watch Isaac Arthur. I think it's a great channel, and he's covering all of these realistic sci-fi scenarios on his channel. So I can only recommend that. It's way more that I have mentioned so far. And he all of these like the limitations of gray goo stuff. That's I think he also talked about it. But what I wanted to say is like what you've just said is yes, it would have to be pretty much a one-hit KO strike to humanity
Just
or
get
to
everybody at the same
civilization
time.
at once. And but also that's a reason why in the opinion of techno optimists like Isaac Arthur, the AI wouldn't do it. Is that the AI would calculate that trying to cooperate with humans is always the safest and most rational course of action, because
Yeah.
as the AI, and it's one of the questions like, okay, so as an AI, I will strike and do some damage, but then unite the whole world against me, and the chances of that, it may fail, I may die. If it values self-preservation,
Yeah.
which we probably
You're
by
right.
design would always. So that's one scenario. Another is, as an AI, how do I know that the data inputs that I'm getting, if it was actually self-aware, how do I know that the data inputs that I'm getting are in some sort of matrix that I'm immersed in that's actually fake? And it's only
Yeah.
a test, so I only think I have an opportunity to strike at humans, but that's just a mousetrap. If I do it, then I fail the test, and the humans will know that I am evil and they will destroy me.
That's,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of good, completely logical, rational considerations if you understand the technology to make to that usually, fortunately, are sort of decreasing the level of doom that these technologies bring with them,
Yeah.
because when people say the singularity will come, and which again sometimes these cyberneticists sound pretty religious, but they would say something like the singularity will come and there will be the machine that can improve its own intelligence over time, and it would just completely like overtake our own intelligence,
Yeah.
and then we like would be like in 5 minutes would be a godlike intelligence stuff. And
Yeah.
Isaac Arthur's
Yeah. Yeah.
argument against that is particularly interesting, because he says that already exists. It's called the science. It's like our own community of scientists that's developing new technologies and improving our understanding of the world. That's
Yeah.
it, and it's us, and it already exists. So a freshly newly created artificial intelligence would still have to contend with us doing already the intelligence explosion
Yeah.
thing. It's
Yeah, you're
yeah.
right, and really, all AI is just it's just the next level of us. It really is like we're their parents. It's our child. We're going to be connected with it, just like the internet. I mean, we're talking through AI. We're talking through technology right now that is just it's an extension of who we are. So there's no separating humans and technology ever again. I don't think. So but it's important that we kind of are all aware of that. So that's one and two, the two kind of major roles. Then we can get into some kind of interesting ones after that. So let's look at the next one. So number 3, use AI and human coordination to cure all diseases, including aging.
Mm-hmm.
as a goal of human society
I think
and
that's
robotics?
getting a bit into science fiction territory. In that, of course, it will help. But
Hmm.
in even in science fiction, there's a general consensus, as far as I can understand it, that humans are, in this sense, better for invention than machines. In that, our awareness and sort of intuition and all of these sort of like more ineffable qualities
Hmm.
give us an ability to come up with new ideas, but already in a way that's sort of fully formed and meaningful. That these sort of artificial intelligences, as they are built right now, are entirely unable to do, meaning that it's a great complementary technology that does well
Hmm.
what we don't do well. But it's better, the technology is better at perfecting things that we have thought of first. It's like it's sort
Hmm.
of the current way how the sort of symbiosis or the like how that works as an extension of ourselves. Like it means that just like we have created something that sped up our calculation capacity. But the
Hmm.
calculation capacity, according to experts in the field like Sir Roger Penrose, who is like lately, I think he got some Nobel Prize for something in physics, but he's currently focused on the problem of consciousness, and
Hmm.
he keeps talking about his idea of like theory of information is insufficient to explain what we understand as intelligence. Well, especially with the focus on the word "we understand," because in nowhere in information technology is understanding like his best word for what it is. That's not explained. There's nowhere is it explained what understanding, how it works, how to make it technologically, or even like it seems that like as a, like the phenomenon of understanding that we clearly do have is
Hmm.
which is sort of giving us an edge in what you would call invention or creation of new things,
Hmm.
is something that is just not part of our current information theory at all. So it's just about the theory is just about calculation, and calculation processing can do a lot of things. And in our brains, clearly, there are our minds, there are centers that do calculating. The calculation is also something that we do, worse than the machines, that the calculating machines.
Hmm.
But the understanding that we also have is something that's not in those machines at all. The way that the current architecture and understanding of the technology that we have. So it's still valid in like a sort of science fiction consideration that maybe one day we will figure it out and we will
Hmm.
find out what creates awareness or consciousness technologically, and then we could create it artificially. It's just it's complete science fiction at this point because there is zero scientific theory to explain it, like how it works
Right.
and therefore how to make it. So
Makes
just
sense.
like when you say like that, with the help like or working together to just invent things like cure diseases, I think that's
Hmm.
completely fine, just like many other scientific goals that you can have that benefit mankind. And I think
Yep.
that's sort of inevitably occurring or going to happen, that just these tools that are being developed will be used in
Yeah.
every way to help us solve every problem.